Good morning. Now we are on the unit 2 of the introduction of semiotics of the first week course. In this unit, we will learn about some prominent thinkers who have directly or indirectly discussed the subject matter of semiotics. We will also learn about some fundamental notions and keywords used in semiotics and semiotic studies of a text. This is actually about the studies on language. The issues of language, meaning, and their interrelationship have interested thinkers since antiquity across cultures. Greeks as well as Indians thought over the issues related to language. The word semiotics comes from the Greek word semiotikos, semiotikos, which literally means giving signs or an interpreter of signs. The word semiotikos is a derivation from the Greek word semeno, which literally means to signify. As the word was used in ancient Greece, the thinkers also have thought about the issues of language. For example, Plato discussed on the language in his work Cratylus, Aristotle in Poetics, and also in his work on interpretation. Stoics and Epicureans also thought about the issues related to language, as they also differentiated between human language and animal language. The tradition in the Occidental world continued with the Latin thinkers like Longinus, Horace, St. Augustine, and many others. The tradition continued in Latin for long and in various modern European languages during and after Renaissance. India also had a vibrant tradition of thinking on various aspects of issues related to language and meaning since the times of Pratishakyas of Vedas and study of Vedangas. The treatises like Nirukta of Yask, Ashtadhyayi of Panini, and the tradition of commentary of this treatise, related tradition of grammar and philosophy, were now exposed before the grand intellectual tradition of Europe. The European scholars like Ferdinand de Saussure worked on these traditions, and many other scholars worked on these Indian traditions, which created a full tradition of scholarship on issues related to language and meaning. Some prominent thinkers of this tradition in Europe are Julia Kristeva, Baudrillard, Michel Foucault, Lévi-Strauss, Roland Barthes, Jacques Derrida, who all have worked mostly in the tradition of Saussure. The East European and Russian scholars like Romo Jakobson, Yuri Mikhailovich Lotnam, Mikhail Bakhtin, and many such others works on the issues we study in semiotics, and they all represent the East European and the Russian tradition of semiotics. Emile Benveniste, who was a French, and Umberto Eco, an Italian, wrote a lot in the field of semiotics. These two are generally used even today for the processes of arriving at meaning. One, the two terms about which I am talking when I said these two are generally used. These two terms are generally used. One is semiosis by Peirce, the other is act of signification by Saussure. Semiotic studies communication, semiotics studies communication as the generation of meaning in the message, whether by the encoder or by the decoder. So encoder and decoder are both equally active participants in the process of generation of meaning. We have to understand the emphasis given in semiotics on the issues of communication. So communication is studied not only as a two-way process or like we study in any other models. Here the emphasis is on the creation of the meaning. Meaning is not a static nor an absolute concept found in the message. So semioticians prefer terms like reading a text and creating or generating or negotiating the meaning of the text or the message in the text. So we have already seen the categories of signs given by Peirce. Peirce had made three categories of sign. One is icon, index, and symbol. We had earlier seen that sign, interpretant, and object were in a triangular relationship. Now here we see the categories, the types of sign. One is an icon, the other is an index, and the third is a symbol as given by C.S. Peirce. According to C.S. Peirce, icon is that sign, that kind of sign which resembles its object in some way. It looks or sounds or it resembles like what it designates. For example, a photograph is an icon. When we take a selfie, we are creating an icon of ourselves. The other is index. Index is that type of sign in which we can find a direct link between a sign and the object designated by it. The two are actually directly connected. For example, a smoke is an index of fire. The sound of roaring is an index of the tiger around. The third category of sign is a symbol. In a symbol, there is no direct connection or direct resemblance between the sign and the object designated by it. A symbol communicates only on the basis of a general agreement among its users that it shall stand for something or some particular idea. The use of symbol is very clearly based on convention, arbitrariness, an arbitrarily decided convention, and agreement and certain generally agreed upon rules of a particular speech community. Every word of a language is a symbol. So we may say that the onomatopoeic words are more like icons, but then it depends on its uses. Such words may be considered to be icon if they are taken too literally, or else their meanings and uses may be different than their basic sound notations. For example, when we say knock knock is an onomatopoeic, it is true that the basic sense of this word is taken here from the sound. But in a sentence like knock on the heaven's door, which is a famous song, it is not directly used in the basic sense. So the direct similarity of sounds does not necessarily mean that the onomatopoeic words will be icons. So it depends a lot on the way these signs are being used, and on the basis of their usages we have to find in which category does a particular sign fall. Now let's study the categories of signs according to Saussure. According to Saussure, sign has two aspects. We have already seen that sign is composed of signifier and signified. Signifier is the physical form and signified is the concept related to the sign. The sign and the relationship between the signifier and signified depend upon the convention. This is the social dimension of sign. The moment we say that the relationship depends upon the convention, now that convention is decided by a particular society, and in that convention the variations in signified becomes often important, and so we have to understand the social dimension of sign. In the social dimension of sign, we find not only the arbitrariness but also a result of an arbitrary process which yields to the formation of a sign. This social process involves the users of sign. So the variations between signifieds and to some extent even the signifier, as we can see in the processes involved in the historical linguistics, the signifier and the signified together yield to a sign which depends upon its evolution to a particular society. Even the differences between the onomatopoeic equivalences in two different languages often exhibit the arbitrariness in acoustic reception of signs. For example, we say knock knock in English, but we say khat khat in Hindi. So we can see for the same sound we hear two different sequence of sounds. So according to Saussure, the categories explain two ways in which signs are organized into codes. Here, by code, we mean the systems into which signs are organized. For example, we can say that the signs are organized in a particular language. Now, two ways in which signs are organized are as follows. One, paradigm. Two, syntagm. We have already seen that in the Saussure's concept of sign, one sign is structurally related to the other signs which are being negated for understanding a particular sign. So the kind of relationships that we find in that structural understanding are of two types: one paradigm, the second syntagm. A paradigm is a set of signs from which the one to be used is selected and then put to use. Syntagm is the manner in which the paradigmatically chosen signs are combined and arranged. So we see here that the paradigm involved selection of a sign and syntagm involves combination of signs. Let us understand it by an example. In a sentence like John eats an apple, we have a proper noun, John. We have a verb, eats. We have an article, an, and a noun, apple. This means that we have four paradigmatically selected signs in this sentence. John is selected out of all the proper nouns possible to be placed there. Eats is selected out of all the verbs possible to be placed here. And is selected out of all the possible articles possible to be placed here. Apple is selected out of all the possible nouns which may be placed here. Thus, we have four paradigms. One is the paradigm of noun, more specifically a proper noun. The other is paradigm of verbs. The third is paradigm of articles. Fourth is the paradigm of noun, more specifically common noun. As we have seen in the previous unit, that each sign stands in relation to the other signs by negation of other signs. We may say that the verb eat actually signifies by the act of exclusion of meaning associated to all other verbs of the English language other than the verb eat. Similarly, all the other words or signs chosen out of these four paradigms signify by the action of exclusion of the meaning associated to all the other possible words or signs which can be placed in that particular paradigm. If we have to replace the word eat, it can be replaced by, let us say, John cuts an apple. So, eats is replaced by cuts. The verb cuts cannot replace any other word or sign in the sentence except for eats, because the other signs of the sentence do not belong to the same paradigm. So we should understand that all the units of a paradigm must have something in common so that they replace the other members or words or signs of that particular paradigm. Also, each unit of the paradigm must be clearly distinct from all the other members or words or signs of that particular paradigm. The way in which the words or signs of the sentence John eats an apple, the sentence that we have taken, is combined depends upon the rule or convention of a particular language. This is the syntagmatic combination of that particular language. Grammatical rules or syntax of a particular language often forms part of this. This is decided conventionally and also arbitrarily within a particular speech community and thus may reflect the cultural and social aspect of a particular culture or civilization. Now let us understand another key concept, orders of signification. You see, signs are organized according to the paradigmatic choices and syntagmatic conventions. We often find that there are various significations possible. This means that while signifying, the signs may undergo various processes of signification. Now, for designating the processes involved in various levels of signification, semioticians often use the word orders of signification. Basic notion of denotation and connotation may help us understand that these two are orders of signification. Denotation is the first order of signification. Connotation is the second order of signification. Connotation describes the negotiation of meanings which a sign or a combination of signs yields to us when it interacts with the feelings, emotions, thought processes of the user and the values of his or her culture. This is a realm of movement of meaning or meanings. That means movement of meaning or meanings. That means movement of signification or significations towards the subjective and the intersubjective. So here in the realm of connotation, which is the second order of signification, meaning becomes subjective and intersubjective. In the realm of denotation, meaning is by and large understood without any subjective interpretation, without any intersubjectivity. So a photograph, let's take an example. A photograph seen merely as a mechanical reproduction of an object is the realm of denotation. Connotation is how it is photographed and also how the photograph is being seen. Connotation is often largely arbitrary and specific to social and cultural contexts. Let's come to another key concept mainly given by Jacobson, is that of metaphor and metonymy. Metaphor is a word used in the traditional study of rhetorics. It exploits the similarity of some type between the two objects by comparing them without using the term of comparison. Now, metaphor works in communication at the level of making paradigmatic choices. Metaphor and metonymy, let's take an example. If we say he walks to the gate, for walks we can use paradigmatic choices like marches, he marches to the gate, he flies to the gate, he rushes to the gate, he moves to the gate, and many such others. Now, all these are metaphorical or rather paradigmatic choices. Metonymy, the other concept, metonymy works by associating meaning with other possible signs within the same plane. For example, making a part of an object stand for the whole of that object. Now, for example, when you state a particular part of an object and you mean that the entire object is present by simply using that particular part. As for example, if you say the crowned heads of Europe, and by crowned head you have simply said the head and the crown, but you mean all the kings of the Europe, all the heads of a state of the Europe, then it means that you are talking metonymically, you are talking in a context where you are associating meaning with other possible signs within the same plane. For example, in a TV news, you can see that we often see the presence of police personnel with arms, and that is supposed to suggest an entire anti-terrorist operation. We may see a few flowers and we understand the arrival of a spring. This is an example of metonymic association. The selection of a metonym to suggest the whole reality is crucial, and in the process of selection and viewing of the metonym, the culturally conditioned emotions play an important role. There is certain amount of arbitrariness in selecting metonyms. This arbitrariness is often based on the socio-cultural values of a society and also often on the ideological perspective of an individual. Metaphors work paradigmatically, whereas metonyms work syntagmatically. Metaphors involve association by imagination and transposition. Metonyms involve associations by contiguity. As there is often a direct relationship between the part representing the whole, we may say that metonyms work indexically as against the metaphors which work mostly iconically. Here I am using the terms indexically and iconically as per the definitions given by C.S. Pates. Now let us summarize what we have learned in this unit. In this unit, we have introduced ourselves to some of the thinkers of various intellectual traditions who have thought over the issues related to language and meaning as studied in the domain area of semiotics. We have learnt about the Greek, Latin, later European traditions, both of Western and Eastern Europe, and also a bit about the Indian traditions of studies on language and meaning. We have also learnt about the basic notions and keywords useful in studying a text on semiotics. and also useful in studying a text semiotically. These key notions are related to the domain areas of semiotics and meaning, or categories of sign and nature of signs according to Saussure, signification and orders of signification, metaphor and metonymy. After having learned these concepts, you can now try to apply the concepts learned in this module and in the previous module on semiotics and semiotic understanding of texts available around us. Thank you.